Heat Seekers, welcome back. It's week 8. Are you ready to win? We're ready to help you. We are here with your week 8 tiers. With that being said, let's get to it. Kraig, we see one guy in here who is not producing as a wide receiver 1, but he's up in the wide receiver 1 overall, and that's Stefon Diggs. So do you think with Knox out and some of these other guys, the way this offense is, that maybe it'll start working towards Stefon Diggs? Are you concerned at all with him being a high-end wide receiver 1?
No, I think he has that upside when we're looking at this week that Miami secondary just is not playing the way that people thought it would be. It's really just been a mess this year, even against teams like the Falcons last week. They were able to throw the ball and get stuff done against them. And to your point with Knox out, they love to throw the ball in Buffalo. I think they're going to keep throwing it. And Diggs has had some big games, and I think this is another spot where we're probably going to end up seeing one.
Yeah, I would agree. That's the great thing about Diggs. He has that 150 and 2 touchdown weekly production potential. And we always subscribe to the start your studs theory. So
yeah,
these guys are all studs and you got to start them. Although, truth be told, right now, Cooper Kupp is leading the league, especially at the wide receiver position, by I think it's something like 20 or 30 points, depending on your league scoring. He's just having a monster season so far. All right, so we got a couple guys that have been fighting injuries, Williams and Hopkins. Any concerns this week with either of those guys, or do you feel pretty good about this top 6 overall?
The nice thing about Hopkins is he's playing Thursday night. Probably when you guys see this video shortly beforehand, he'll be playing after you see it, that is. So you'll be able to make that decision. I expect him to be playing. Deebo Samuel's an interesting one, too. He was absent at practice. It'll be Wednesday. So there's always a risk, to pay attention to some of these guys that are having injuries. But if they're available, you start them. To your point previously, you start your studs and you make sure you're going with the guys that you have. Diontae Johnson is PPR leagues, just the amount of targets that he's getting puts him up in that conversation. Monster. Adam Theilen is getting quite a few touchdowns this year, which keeps him up in that sort of conversation. And really, the same thing with CeeDee Lamb up above in the previous tier, but Amari Cooper here. How much are they going to throw the ball? Dallas has been in games where they just decide that they're going to focus more on the running, and they get you production, but not that top tier necessarily. Mm-hmm. You could see potentially a shootout this week with the 2 wide receivers from Minnesota there. So you're just never really quite sure because they both have great running games. But if we're talking about where they could end up here, given the matchup and their abilities, certainly I could see it this week.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting wide receiver 1 tier. I feel really confident about Sutton, Ridley, obviously Tampa boys, Pittman, Terry, Keenan. Then you got Cooks, Sterling Shepard, and then DJ Moore with whatever's happening at the quarterback position. How are you feeling about those 3 guys in this tier? Are those guys that you still feel good are wide receiver 1s no matter the situation?
I think the fact that they're playing Atlanta really hasn't stopped anyone in the passing game this year, so I can certainly see him belonging in the conversation. Talking about Shepard, of the guys that we believe that are going to be healthy at the wide receiver position, he's probably going to be the best bet for consistent production out of them, and Kansas City has given up points through the air this year as well. And Brandin Cooks, they're still throwing to him more. They're still having to throw to the ball when you compare it to other people on the team. So just based off of volume, I think there's a good chance that he makes it into that conversation this week, yeah.
Yeah, Brandin Cooks is one of those outside of the Patriots game, and he's just heavily targeted. And it's one of those, you got to put him up in there because he does get just such a good amount of targets.
I think there's just some uncertainty with a lot of these guys that you might think belong possibly up in that farther conversation. Jerry Jeudy just coming back. I think you can feel right to be skeptical about putting them up in that higher level tier. Robert Woods has more consistently been a wide receiver 2 than a wide receiver 1 this year. You're looking at someone like Christian Kirk, has those boomer bust weeks where you can't really completely trust him. The Packers have to have someone catch the ball if MVS is healthy and you're missing Devontae Adams and Allen Lazard, which it feels like we're going to. MVS certainly belongs to that conversation. Waddle, based on the volume that he's getting. Corey Davis and Crowder being next to each other is interesting. We're going to have Mike White this week, and we're not completely sure what that is going to look like. Going forward, you may see a different split there with Joe Flacco probably coming along at some point, and I think that would be a boost later on to Davis and probably not as good for Crowder from what we've seen. Lockett, I think it's based on the quarterback situation as well as why he's not someone really in contention to be up a tier. Myers is, again, a volume-based wide receiver too, without touchdown upside, as we've seen, unfortunately, throughout his career. And then you just have a mess of wide receivers for the Giants. Whoever's healthy / playing, they're probably going to be throwing the ball. So
yeah, absolutely. So this is a hot and heavy tier right here. There's a lot of things happening here. So you've got Cole Beasley, who's probably a safe play just because he gets a pretty good fair amount of targets. Then you've got some questionable Chicago receivers, and it's not their fault that they're not getting as much targets. Michael Gallup coming back from injury, Tim Patrick dealing with the Jeudy coming back from injury. Russell Gage, week 2 of his return. Last week he had a touchdown. What excites you about this tier?
It's interesting. Right off the bat, Russell Gage does interest me, and so does Van Jefferson. Van is, a boom or bust player that we've seen, but he has been more heavily involved lately, and that is an offense that's just clicking right now. So I like him. Russell Gage, again, having another wide receiver besides Calvin Ridley. And then you have Kyle Pitts too, just having all of them on the field together has been nice for all of their production, really. Caps maybe the top upside of Calvin Ridley or Pitts, but
yeah, for sure.
It's hard to focus on any one of them. It's really hard to trust the Bears, even as a flex, just the way things have gone. Tampa is a situation unto itself when you're facing them. But Allen Robinson just hasn't been what we wanted this year with the quarterback play that they've had. San Francisco is a decent matchup, though. Maybe if you feel good about one of them. I do feel better about Jarvis Landry than Odell if you're talking about the Browns here. Odell just hasn't shown that he has it, and they need to throw the ball to someone. I like LaVisca too. He is a step below Marvin Jones. I think that's correct how we have it.
Yeah. And depending on the Miles Sanders injury front, I'm firing up all my Eagles shares against Detroit. Russell Gage, I do have one Russell Gage share, and I'd feel pretty good about that matchup this week. Tim Patrick, I'm not so excited about with Jeudy coming back because it's Jerry Jeudy. There's not much you can say about that. He's a dynamic player, so you got him on the field.
Yep.
Okay, so let's round it out. Let's get to the end of it. What's our sleeper category look like? When you look at it, there's a lot of question marks. Khalif Raymond could get a bunch of targets and get a fair amount of catches. So in PPR, he could be a safe sleeper. Washington, it's hard to really necessarily trust any of the receivers outside Terry and a tight end and the running back. What do you make of this group?
I think Robbie Anderson's a decent play just on the fact that he is getting volume thrown his way. He just isn't getting you catches or yards, and you would think with the amount of volume that's going to change at some point here. Maybe not, but you would think so. Kendrick Bourne was really just based on one play when he had that week against Dallas, but they have been throwing the ball quite a bit. It'll be interesting to see if that's more of a matchup-based situation than them wanting to throw the ball. And I like Zach Pascal, too, just with the issues that they're having in Indianapolis with their receiving core. He should be getting some targets with T.Y. having been banged up and Campbell is out. So Ayuk is always intriguing, and he certainly deserves to be on this list, but it's just a matter of whatever the problem is between him and that coaching staff. We don't really know what the problem is, but he just isn't getting the attention, and hopefully that changes at some week here.
And Traquan is an interesting one coming back from injury. I think this is week 2 back from injury. It'll be interesting to see if he gets up to full speed, how he's doing with Jameis. He's one that I'm at least keeping an eye on. Definitely not comfortable if I have to throw him in a lineup. It'll be interesting to see if he can develop some sort of rapport with you.
And you feel better about him if Deontay Harris didn't practice and was hurt and didn't play on their last game. If he's out, does that boost Traquan a little bit? Certainly I would think so, because it's really just him and Callaway at the moment for the receivers.
Yep, for sure. So that's it, folks. Hopefully you've liked the video. If you have, hit that like button. If you have questions, throw them comments below. Jump in our Discord. If you are surprised or there's somebody missing on here that you wanted to see on here, let us know. We'd love to keep the conversation going, and good luck this week, and we'll see you later.